Mount Rainier is not erupting. Nobody is running. But right now, 150,000 Americans are living inside a flood zone made of rock, ice, and boiling hot mud that moves faster than highway traffic. The warning system built to save them has holes in it, and the mountain just shook more times than it ever has before. This is not a story about what might happen someday. This is something happening right now, 60 miles southeast of downtown Seattle, where the tallest volcano in the Cascade Range towers over valleys full of homes, schools, strip malls, and highways. Mount Rainier ranks as the third most dangerous volcano in the entire country, behind only Kilauea and Mount St. Helens, with an overall threat score of 203 out of a possible 324. And out of every volcano on that list, Rainier has the most people living right in the path of its most likely disaster. That disaster is not lava. It is not ash clouds or walls of superheated gas. The thing that keeps volcano scientists up at night when they think about Mount Rainier is a lahar. A lahar is a fast-moving river of volcanic rubble, water, and ice that acts like liquid concrete. It swallows everything in its path: trees, boulders, cars, houses, bridges, soil. The flow fills entire river valleys from wall to wall, and it does not slow down the way floodwater does. On the steep upper slopes of the volcano, a lahar from Rainier can top 100 miles per hour. By the time it reaches the flat valleys where people actually live, the flow is still moving at 15 to 50 miles per hour, carrying millions of cubic meters of rock and mud, filling channels 60 to 100 feet deep. When a lahar shows up in a town, it does not look like a flood. There is no slow rise of water. The ground shakes first. A low rumble builds from the direction of the mountain. Then the front of the flow appears, a churning gray-brown wall that fills the valley floor from side to side, carrying full-size trees tumbling end over end in the current like matchsticks. The sound has been compared to a freight train, except it does not pass. It keeps coming, and it hardens. Within hours of stopping, the rubble starts setting like wet cement, trapping anything inside it. Rescue crews cannot dig through hardened lahar deposits with shovels. They need jackhammers and heavy digging machines. And a lahar does not just wreck what it touches, it buries it. A large enough flow would cover highway bridges along State Route 410 and State Route 167 under tens of feet of hardening rubble. The Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway mainline that carries freight between Seattle and Portland runs straight through the Puyallup River Valley. Interstate 5 crosses lahar-mapped ground near Fife and the Port of Tacoma. Commencement Bay, which handles billions of dollars in yearly trade, sits at the bottom end of the Puyallup drainage, exactly where a lahar would dump its heaviest load as it hits tidewater. The damage to key buildings and systems goes well beyond roads and rail. The Puyallup River Valley holds water treatment plants, power stations, and natural gas pipelines that serve towns across South King and Pierce counties. Good Samaritan Hospital in Puyallup sits less than 2 miles from the river channel. Schools in Ording and Sumner sit inside the mapped lahar zone. A major flow of rubble down the Puyallup drainage would not just damage these places, it would bury them under material that takes heavy digging machines to clear. On the Nisqually River to the south, the rubble path runs past Alder Dam. A lahar large enough to overtop or break through Alder Dam would send a second flood downstream on top of the first debris flow, making things worse across towns that would already be trying to get out. A lahar can be set off by a full volcanic eruption, but it does not need one. A big enough earthquake, a sudden landslide from the weakened summit, or even heavy rain loosening rock that is already crumbling, can send one racing downhill with almost no warning. That one fact is what separates Rainier from every other high-threat volcano in the lower 48 states. The Rainier Lahar detection system is a web of ground-shaking sensors, sound wave detectors, tripwire cables, and cameras placed along the river channels that drain off the mountain. Since 2016, 25 new sensors have been put in on the volcano's slopes, replacing an older system that only sent data every 2 minutes. The new stations send data non-stop in real time, feeding it to 2 emergency command centers that run around the clock, one in Pierce County and one at the state level. That is a huge step forward. The old system had a built-in 4-minute gap between a lahar passing a sensor and anyone finding out about it. 4 minutes of silence while a wall of rubble moves downhill at highway speed. The upgraded system also feeds a network of 42 warning sirens spread across the Puyallup and Nisqually valleys, from the town of Ashford at the base of the mountain all the way down to the Port of Tacoma. These sirens blast voice warnings in English and Spanish, flash blue strobe lights, and can be turned on by satellite. They are tested on the first Monday of every month at noon, using a short chime signal for 11 months and a full 5-minute emergency wail in October. But the system is not airtight. In 2023, an old siren in downtown Puyallup fired a false alarm because, apart from the pre-upgrade system, had never been fully taken offline. A separate test failure showed that some sirens played only clicking sounds while the strobe lights worked fine, traced to a bad audio file. And the push to add more sensors in the backcountry inside Mount Rainier National Park is still stuck in an environmental review because the proposed sites fall inside areas protected under the Wilderness Act. 12 new monitoring spots have been proposed for the park interior. Until that review clears, the closest detection points sit farther from the summit than the system was meant for. The network is stronger than it has ever been. That much is fair to say. But stronger than ever and finished are not the same thing, and the gap between detection and survival in these valleys is measured in minutes, not hours. The town of Ording sits where the Carbon and Puyallup rivers meet, roughly 30 miles from the summit. In a modeled large Lahar scenario starting from the volcano's west side, the rubble reaches Ording in about 1 hour. Homes inside Mount Rainier National Park get hit in about 5 minutes. Towns just outside the park border get roughly 15 minutes. Ashford and Elby, the gateway towns along the Nisqually corridor, sit in that 15-minute window. The people there do not have time to drive out. They have time to run uphill. Sumner and Puyallup, farther downstream, get closer to 2 to 3 hours depending on the scenario. But those towns are also bigger, with more people trying to move through fewer exits. For the people closest to the mountain, the warning window is not 60 minutes. It is closer to 5, and the mountain itself is not quiet. Between July 8th and August 25th of 2025, over 1,300 earthquakes were picked up beneath Mount Rainier's summit, with thousands more too small to locate. 41 recorded earthquakes per hour at the peak of the swarm on July 8th. The biggest reached a magnitude of 2.42, too small to feel at the surface, centered about 2.8 miles below the summit crater. The volcano alert level stayed at normal the whole time. Instruments pointed to hot water moving through cracks in the rock, not magma pushing upward. No ground movement showed up on sensors. No unusual gas output was found. Everything pointed to hot water activity, not the start of an eruption. That reading is fair. Rainier gets 1 or 2 small swarms a year, usually a few dozen earthquakes over a few days. The normal rate is about 9 to 10 earthquakes per month. 1,307 weeks is not normal. It is the biggest swarm ever recorded at this volcano. And even if it was hot water rather than magma, the hot water system is the problem. The heated fluids moving beneath the summit are the same fluids that have been slowly turning the rock inside the mountain into soft, water-soaked clay for thousands of years. Smectite, kaolinite, halloysite, alunite. These are weak minerals. They crumble, they soak up water and swell, and they are packed into the upper west side of the volcano in a zone called Sunset Amphitheater, where steam vents at 76 to 82 degrees Celsius blow non-stop from the summit craters. Three-dimensional computer modeling of slope strength has shown that the conditions needed for a major collapse exist only on Mount Rainier's upper west slope, not the north face, not the south. The west side, where the damaged rock is thickest and the glaciers are steepest. That finding lines up with every major collapse the mountain has produced over the last 6,000 years. This damaged rock is not a what-if. It is the same material that has already given way, over and over, sending the largest debris flows in the volcano's known history down into the valleys below. The ground beneath the towns in these valleys tells you everything you need to know about what this mountain can do. Roughly 5,600 years ago, the top 2,000 feet of Mount Rainier broke apart in a massive landslide that turned into a lahar, carrying 3.8 cubic kilometers of rubble. That is nearly 1 cubic mile of rock and mud. It traveled over 75 miles down the White River system to Puget Sound, burying more than 200 square miles of lowland under deposits over 100 feet deep in places. The city of Enumclaw sits on that rubble. So does Auburn, so does Kent. Parts of Tacoma's shipping docks rest on it. The deposits reach into Commencement Bay. That event, called the Osceola Mudflow, ripped the summit of the volcano clean off. Rainier used to stand over 16,100 feet tall. The Osceola took 2,000 feet off the top and left a horseshoe-shaped crater a mile wide, open to the northeast. The current summit, at 14,411 feet, is regrown lava that filled part of that crater. And then, roughly 500 years ago, it happened again. Not from the same direction, and not at the same size, but from the exact same cause. Heat-damaged rock on the west side at Sunset Amphitheater gave way and collapsed into a 260 million cubic meter lahar that raced down the Puyallup River Valley, reaching the community of Electron at a depth of 98 feet, burying old-growth Douglas fir forests under 26 feet of mud across 13 square miles. The Electron mudflow of 1507 did not come with an eruption. No lava, no ash column, no shaking that would have shown up on modern instruments as magma. The damaged rock simply let go. The event was dated by matching tree rings from bark-covered Douglas firs buried in the flow, pinpointed to 1507 with 99.7% certainty. The entire city of Orting is built on top of what that flow left behind. The deposits are up to 18 feet thick beneath the foundations. If you're finding this useful, consider subscribing. I cover geography, earth science, and natural systems every week. The reason the Armero comparison keeps coming up is that it already happened. On November 13th, 1985, the Colombian volcano, Nevado del Ruiz, erupted with a moderate blast that melted ice and snow on the summit and sent lahars racing down river valleys at 30 miles per hour. The town of Armero, 60 miles downstream, was buried in 3 waves, each lasting 10 to 20 minutes, reaching depths of 100 feet. More than 23,000 of the town's 28,700 people never made it out. Many were in bed. The eruption happened at 9 at night. By the time the first wave reached Armero just before midnight, most of the town was asleep. There were over 2 hours of warning time between the eruption and the lahar's arrival. The warnings were never acted on. The chain of messages broke down. Orders to leave never reached the people. The comparison to Rainier is not a stretch. Nevado del Ruiz is a glacier-covered, cone-shaped volcano with river valleys running through crowded lowlands. Rainier is the same setup, except Rainier currently holds roughly 8 times the glacier ice that Ruiz had in 1985. The towns downstream of Rainier sit on the hardened lahar deposits of past collapses, exactly the way Armero sat on the deposits of an 1845 lahar from the same volcano. The entire Rainier lahar detection system, the sirens, the drills, the escape routes, all of it exists because the United States looked at what happened at Armero and built a system meant to stop it from happening here. The Volcano Disaster Assistance Program was created in 1986 as a direct answer to that disaster. The gap between Armero and the Puyallup Valley is supposed to be planning. Detect it, alert people, get them out. That is the idea. The reality on the ground is harder. Orting has more than doubled in population since 2006, from roughly 4,400 to over 9,000 people. The Tehele master-planned community, straddling the Orting and Bonnie Lake area on a flat stretch above the valley, is on track toward 9,700 homes when fully built out, with over 11,000 people already living there. A new section called The Ridges launched in 2025 with 372 more homes. 5,000 new homes are planned across nearby areas by 2035. The people moving in are not blind to the risk. Many simply cannot afford to live anywhere else in the Puget Sound housing market, where the middle home price in Puyallup alone hit roughly $564,000 in 2025. The Lahar Zone offers cheaper housing in a region where prices have gone through the roof. In December of 2025, heavy rain-driven flooding along the Puyallup River forced people out of their homes and caused widespread property damage in some of the same valley roads that the Lahar sirens are meant to protect. The flooding was a tiny fraction of what a lahar would bring, and it still overwhelmed road systems and pushed families out for weeks. And there is a money gap underneath all of it that almost never gets talked about. Normal home insurance in Puyallup and nearby towns flat out does not cover lahar damage. It falls under earth movement, a standard policy cutoff. Federal flood insurance is the only coverage that covers mudflows, and not everyone has it. A homeowner who loses everything in a lahar may get nothing back at all. King County, which includes Auburn and Kent and sits right on top of the Osceola mudflow's ancient footprint, currently has no building rules tied to volcano danger. Puyallup passed a rule in 2025 that stops new middle housing construction inside the Lahar Zone, one of the first rules of its kind in the region. But it only covers middle housing, not single-family homes. In March of 2024, the largest lahar escape drill in world history moved 45,000 students and staff from 5 school districts on foot, with some students walking 2 miles to reach meeting points outside the mapped Lahar zone. The feedback was clear. Survival is absolutely possible if people move fast and stay on foot. But that drill ran on a clear spring weekday, during school hours, with advance warning, in daylight, with traffic managed by police and volunteers. A real Lahar does not wait for good conditions. Surveys have shown again and again that only about half of people in the Lahar zone have ever walked their escape route. 2/3 have no emergency bag packed. And most say they plan to drive out, which would cause gridlock in the narrow valley roads that turns a survivable event into one that is not. The roads out of Ording squeeze through a small number of bridge crossings over the Carbon and Puyallup rivers. If those bridges are blocked by the front edge of a debris flow, or simply jammed with cars, the escape plan breaks down at the exact spot where it matters most. The sirens work. The escape routes exist. The drills prove people can move fast enough. The detection network sends data in real time. The question is whether all of those pieces hold together at 2 in the morning in the rain when the ground starts shaking and a siren goes off that most people have only ever heard during a Monday noon test. Armero happened at night. Most of the people lost that night were in bed when the mud reached their homes. The Puyallup Valley has the same weak spot every evening after dark, when the sirens would need to wake people from sleep, in houses with shut windows, in neighborhoods where not everyone has signed up for the phone alert system, when the roads fill with cars, when the bridges over the Puyallup River turn into bottlenecks, when the gap between survival and burial is measured in minutes that have already started counting down. Mount Rainier is not erupting. The alert level is normal. The mountain is acting about the way it has for the last 500,000 years. But the west side is still getting weaker. The hot water system is still cooking the rock into clay. The valleys are still filling with people. And the next Lahar does not need an eruption to start moving. If this topic grabs you, the video on screen goes deeper into how volcano monitoring systems actually work across the Cascade Range. Click it now.